It's no secret that life today moves fast. Probably too fast. American culture is obsessed with getting as much done in as little time as possible, no matter the consequences. I'm naturally an achievement-based person, so this targets my personality perfectly. I've absolutely mastered doing too much, and honestly, it feels like it's slowly killing me. This is where slow living comes in. So I set some pretty ambitious goals for 2025, and one of the most ambitious for me personally was to spend less time doing and more time being. This idea occurred to me when Abby mentioned it to me on what was supposed to be a relaxing day off when I constantly did tasks all day. I installed my standing desk legs, I caught up on emails, I did revisions of a client project that no one was putting a deadline on other than me, I cleaned the house, I prepped food, and by the time I was done with everything, I had 30 minutes to hang out with Abby before it was time to go to sleep. So my natural tendency is to align my self-worth with my achievements, and that's the biggest thing I've been trying to grow past as a person. And from the outside, this doesn't necessarily seem like a bad thing. For employers or clients, they love someone who's a doer, someone who goes out and just gets things done. Over the past year, I've pushed myself to the brink of exhaustion almost every single week. By the time the weekend rolls around, if I have anything left in the tank, I use up the remaining ounces of energy doing all the things I didn't make time for during the week. The reality is, I've been here before. I pushed myself harder and harder almost every year until late 2019 when I pushed myself a little too hard and then I burned out. I spent a month doing absolutely nothing. I couldn't help but sleep for 12 hours each night. I binged all 142 episodes of New Girl. I was hard pressed to do life basics like feed myself or run errands. My endless to-do list sat undone. The irony was, one of my goals for 2019 had been to slow down. Every year since then, my goals have included some sort of calm, less slow language. But what this has really resulted in is me finding a level of busy that is just below the threshold of burnout. I've done some great work over the last 5 years. I delivered hundreds of client projects. I fully committed to disc golf as my primary hobby, as a way to escape from the creative work I do on a daily basis. Along the way, I worked a full-time job with the intention of using it as a means of slowing down. It didn't work. I just ended up with a full-time job and then a full-time business on top of it. So I haven't been on the ice in 2 years because last year it didn't get cold enough for it to actually properly freeze, which was the first winter I can remember. So let's see how long it takes me to get my sea legs. So I've thought a lot about what this tangibly looks like, and I think there are 3 things that this looks like this year. Number 1, trying to keep work at 40 hours a week. I know that won't be possible every week, but at least trying. The second thing would be taking Sundays just to be, days that I don't try to get anything done that's necessarily productive, at least as many as I can. And the third thing is basically making sure there's one evening a week that I don't have anything on my agenda. Okay, that's enough of that. My intention in this is one of attention. I'd like to get to the point this year where I can fully work, fully recreate, and fully rest at a pace that feels sustainable at least 80 to 90% of the time. Simply put, I believe a fully rested Nick is someone who will have the capacity to deliver a much higher caliber of work in the areas I choose to apply myself in. So my favorite nonfiction book of all time is this book. It's Essentialism by Greg McKeown. In its pages is a very simple graph that I want to draw for you now. So basically, this graph argues that you have a finite store of attention, time, and input you can contribute. And that limited resource can be contributed to a million different things, or it can go to one thing. This is the same amount of effort, just directed differently. I think this graph is actually the key to whether I will achieve this objective this year of living slowly or not in the area of work. Now, if I relied on just this graph alone and my willpower, that would not work. So the other tool I've integrated to help me in this process is my calendar. Basically, I take the limits we talked about earlier, 40 hours a week, no Sundays, and a free evening each week, and input those into the calendar, and then build everything else around that. I also work weeks ahead on my calendar to make sure that I am getting done the things I need to get done, and then I know my capacity for what else I can integrate into my life. And I'm always shocked by how little else I can fit into my life besides making these videos and dealing with the most urgent client requests. Now, this has been a work in progress all through the month of January, and I have a very raw, authentic video coming up next week about my process of going through this and figuring things out. In the long term, how will I know that I've succeeded at this? Well, I think there are two things. Number one, when my ever-present level of anxiety is replaced with a consistent sense of peace. And number two, when my self-worth is not directly tied to my achievements. This might seem like a lofty goal, and this certainly won't just take this year, but I think slow living is the way to get there, and I don't think I'll be able to find that any other way. I'm very good at working fully, and I really love to work, but I tend to be a little more a million directions versus a single direction. Again, something I've been working on for years. I'm also very good at recreating fully, or at least in a way that I find really fun. And the area I struggle with the most is finding out how to rest fully. This actually feels like a complete mystery to me. By all accounts, I'm bad at resting, or at least what the culture around me considers to be rest. But I do think rest is a highly personal thing. If you look at approaches of some of the best in the world, I can think of athletes, for example. Many of the best will do focused sprints of activity, followed by longer rests in between, as opposed to maintaining a consistent pace throughout a game. If you think of how Messi plays soccer or how LeBron James plays basketball, they sprint and then rest, sprint and then rest. The greatest issue I run into is understanding what is restful to me personally. Immediately, several things come to mind that aren't restful to me. Number one, rotting on the couch, unless I'm at the point where I'm more of a vegetable than a human. Number two, using any kind of screen, especially if it involves scrolling. Number three, just general entertainment activities or socializing. I think people can confuse rest and recreation as the same thing, and they are certainly not the same thing. However, recreation can be restful in a limited quantity, so not all recreation is restful. To see if I could spark any greater insight, I spent some time with the definition of rest. Dictionary.com's definition lists rest as a noun, to repose or sleep, specifically a bodily state characterized by minimal functional and metabolic activities. 2, freedom from activity or labor, a state of motionlessness or inactivity. 3, peace of mind and spirit. I've had this phrase bouncing around in my head for a little bit. It's active rest. This is a common phrase used in the fitness industry to describe something you do on your rest day from the gym that is still active. For example, skating instead of weightlifting. Based on the definition of rest above, active rest is a proper oxymoron. I actually think this would be considered more recreation than rest based on these definitions. Merriam-Webster defines recreation as refreshment of strength and spirits after work. This definition has not changed since the 15th century. A life without recreation seems very boring and honestly not much like a life worth living to me. So as I was thinking through this, I wanted to see if I could come up with some examples of recreational activities that are restorative or restful to me. And I was able to come up with a few. Number one, going to the gym. This is a very restorative practice to me, but if I did it constantly all the time, it wouldn't be such a thing. I need to take breaks from it, and I can only go for a certain amount of time before it would get literally fatiguing on my body. Number 2, pretty much anything that is active outside. Walking, hiking, biking, hockey, disc golf, you name it. As long as it's active outside, I'm probably going to be on board, and it's probably going to be restorative to me. However, there's a certain limit on this. I can certainly take more of that than I can take the gym, but if I did it all the time, it wouldn't be restful. Number 3, reading analog books, not even audiobooks. For me, there's something about the sole act of reading a physical book that is very restorative, and I can do a lot of this, and then eventually my brain hurts and I need to move on to something else. Similar to a life without recreation being a life that doesn't feel very meaningful, a life of only recreation is also a life that would be very void of meaning. We see this sometimes with people who retire and they say, I'm just gonna golf all day or go lay on the beach all day, and they get so bored of it so fast. Now, all of these things can be restful in a certain quantity, but when you actually look at it, you realize these are all doing things. And the definition of rest was all about being, not doing. And this is where I get totally lost. I don't be very well. And I think this is just an ongoing problem that I've had, and it will be a trip of discovery this year to determine what does being look like for me. Now, I'm probably totally overthinking this, so I'll be doing some experimenting this year to see what being really means to me. But maybe you can help me. What does being look like to you? I'm curious. I want to leave you with a quote that I found in pursuing an answer to this great question. In the 1980s, simplicity was seen primarily as downshifting, or pulling back from the rat race of consumer society. Several decades later, there was a growing recognition of simplicity as upshifting, or moving beyond the rat race to the human race. Dwayne Elgin, Voluntary Simplicity.